All right. I would like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for March 17th, 2025. I would like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for March 17th, 2025. Madam Clerk, please open the board for roll call.
I ain't working. Use your left hand.
Has everyone recorded?
No, sir. Everybody recording.
Please take notes and they will all be, of course, with. That's probably not true.
Oh, she looking hot.
Yeah.
Everything is hot.
Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 15 members present. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. And we'll make sure that does include Representative Shaw. All right. Are there any personal orders or announcements before we get started this morning? Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today in the audience, we have a lovely young lady named Banna. Will you please wave at us and stand? Banna is Ruben's granddaughter. She's a sixth grader here in Nashville, so I know she's going to learn a lot today. Good to have you, Banna.
All right, thank you and welcome. Glad to have you. Anyone else for personal orders or announcements? All right, seeing none. Today we have 3 budget hearings and 1 expansion request hearing. First up is the Department of Finance Administration. And again, members, you can refer to your dashboard for all presentation documents. So before we begin, without objection, we're going to go out of session. Without objection, we are now out of session. And we would like to welcome the Commissioner and the Department of Finance Administration and his staff, and we will begin with introductions. And Commissioner, we will work the microphones just so that you and your team know. So just wait for the red light to come on. And then once you see that, you're ready to go. All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to be with you bright and early on Monday morning, and good to see many of you celebrating St. Patrick's Day today. So good to be with you. My name is Jim Bryson, Commissioner of Finance Administration, and apologize. My plane was very late last night and I'm slurring a little bit, but I'll get there. Give me a few minutes. But it's good to be with you this morning. Jim Bryson, Commissioner of Finance Administration. Today I have with me Deputy Commissioner Eugene Newbert, Tennessee's Chief Information Officer Stephanie Dedman on my left, Director of the Office of Criminal Justice Programs Jennifer Brinkman on my right, as well as several of our team in attendance. Mr. Chairman, I assume you would like for us to go ahead and continue with our presentation, correct?
Yes, sir. Please go right ahead.
Most but not all of our requests that you'll see in front of you reflect the increasing importance of technology to the efficient delivery of government services. We are removing or transitioning outdated technology while investing in new, efficient technologies such as moving data to the cloud and wider use of artificial intelligence. These initiatives will make government more efficient and more extensive and more extensively automate business processes across our enterprise. This budget also includes significant investments in VCIF and other efforts to assist your local law enforcement agencies. Though these initiatives will require new positions, we are not requesting any new positions in our budget. We plan to acquire the necessary positions and equity from existing vacancies and from a department operations being made more efficient or phased out altogether. Also, we have identified $4.8 million in budget reductions, as you will see in the presentation. Our presentation will focus on highlights. We will be glad to answer any questions you may have along the way or at the end of the presentation. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Deputy Commissioner Newbert.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, members, our budget includes cost increases totaling almost $81 million. Of that, $31.5 million is from state appropriations. Of that amount, $30 million is non-recurring. I'm going to talk about a couple cost increases, then turn it over to Jennifer and then Stephanie to talk in more detail about some of the larger ones. The first increase you see is for Vine Courts. This request came to us from the governor's office, part of his budget. The Vine Courts is part of a broad platform with court case search and notification services that keeps court personnel, law enforcement, victims of crime, and defendants informed through an automatic notifications. Vine Courts, this system is live in 86 Tennessee counties. Efforts are underway to continue to implement this system with some already existing notification systems in the other counties. Last year, the program received 36,426 registrations and delivered 189,100 notifications in calendar year 2024. And as I said, this funding will allow the continuation of growth of that system into other counties. Our next request that I'm going to talk about is actually number 3 on the table. It's for a grants management system for the Office of Criminal Justice Programs. Office of Criminal Justice Programs administers grants to local governments, law enforcement, and nonprofits across the state of Tennessee. The number of grants that this office has administered has significantly increased over the last several fiscal years. In 2018, this office oversaw 284 grants. In 2024, that number was up to 952 individual grants, so an increase of 235%. This system will streamline the process both internally for staff, but also externally for those requesting grant funds. It will enhance OCJP's ability to maintain high standards of transparency, accountability, and efficiency. And the expected benefits include reduced processing time for grant contracts, improved data and accuracy, and enhanced support for subrecipients. This time, I'm going to let Jennifer talk about the VCIF funding, and then Stephanie will touch on the STS requests.
Thank you. So as you can see, the Violent Crime Intervention Fund has many positive things that are happening in the state. We have worked diligently to execute contracts and get needed funding to Tennessee's local law enforcement agencies to combat violent crime across the state. For fiscal year 2026, the governor has proposed an additional $30 million for the Violent Crime Intervention Fund to continue the support of our law enforcement partners, supporting victims of crime, and ensuring the safety of our Tennessee citizens. To date, OCJP has obligated the entire $150 million across over 300 contracts, reaching over 250 different law enforcement agencies. The grants have targeted 673 different crime hotspots across the state, opening over 28,000 individual investigations. The funding has enhanced law enforcement communication through the purchase of over 3,100 P25 radios. It has enhanced their ability to access digital evidence through the purchase of digital forensic software and the implementation of a regional digital forensic center in Jefferson County. The grant program has increased access to much needed equipment such as body cameras, pole cameras, LPRs, body armor, and more. For FY 2026, the governor's proposed funding will continue this work.
Okay. Can you hear me? There it goes. Oh, sorry. Finally got it. Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner and Jennifer. As you can see, a number of our requests for FNA do fall into the technology bucket. As Commissioner mentioned, technology is becoming more and more a part of our agency service delivery and providing tools for our employees. We've grouped our cost increases into 3 distinct areas. The first is operations and modernization. The second is innovative service delivery. And the third is customer-driven request. I'll hit on some of the high points in each of these, but certainly welcome any questions that you may have. Within operations and modernization, we are working to eventually replace our enterprise resource planning application. We've requested dollars to continue to develop a request for proposal and move toward a contract to replace that application. Also, you'll see ADA compliance. The federal government issued updated accessibility requirements for all customer-facing websites, mobile apps, forms, documentation, et cetera. And so that $5 million request is for tools and services to help us remediate the significant number of applications that have to be touched and updated. On data center operations, as we continue our journey to the cloud and moving our applications to the cloud, we've requested dollars to move from on-premise storage to cloud-based storage. In the future, that would eliminate the need to request additional equipment. There's also $4.8 million for security enhancements. And as you can see, a number of these initiatives were started using ARPA dollars. And so our request is to continue either software maintenance or ongoing support of applications that were implemented during or as part of ARPA funding. The 4.8 in security represents a number of tools and technologies to continue to protect our data and our network. In the innovative service delivery category, Commissioner mentioned artificial intelligence. We are well on our journey and working with a number of our agencies for proofs of concept. This request is for us to purchase tools to further our artificial intelligence enablement to improve service delivery and productivity. Business Gateway, this is an application that would enable when citizens wish to start or run or close a business in our state, it would simplify their entry into our state with a single point of entry, making it much easier to progress through the process to start a business. In our customer-driven request, most of these represent increased consumption or usage by our agency. The first agency purchase request for $10,500,000. This is a spend authority increase only, meaning the agencies have this money already in their budget, and it's for equipment, laptops, iPads, et cetera. The mobility increased usage, again, representing increased consumption as employees continue to work from home. We've had increased requests for mobile phones, as well as 4 and 5G functionality. And those are the highlights, and certainly open to any questions you may have to clarify.
Thank you. And just closing out, we do have, as Commissioner mentioned, $4.8 million of reductions. $243,000 of that is from state appropriations. Many of these are reductions from efficiencies gained through technology enhancements or a change of provider that resulted in lower cost. Others are expected to be low impact and in areas where there's underspending. So the reductions are not expected to have any significant impact to the ongoing operations of the department. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we're open to any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And Commissioner, again, thank you for being here. And I want to go back, and this may be for Director Dedmon to answer some of these questions, but can you talk a little bit about, of course, the way that STS is funded? It's through interdepartmental revenues, but can you talk a little bit more about the fee structure for STS? I know that there has been some changes over the past 3 years, especially the multiple rate reviews and billing increases for the work that is performed by STS. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'd be happy to. Thank you for the question, Chairman. As you pointed out, we are what's called an internal service fund, which means when we are funded for projects, the money actually goes to the agency's budgets and we recover our costs through rates. We have a number of federal requirements in terms of categories and the way the rates are billed, meaning at the very basic level, we have to bill all the agencies the same rate. We can't charge the federally funded agencies any differently. Over the last 3 years, we have worked to simplify our cost structure. We have decreased the number of rates significantly and continue to work on that. As you point out, as contracts come in higher or we do new projects, that results in a need to update our rates to be able to recover appropriately from the agencies. So it's sort of an ongoing effort to continuously improve and adjust our rates up or down. In some cases, they go down as we decrease our cost, but it is a fairly complex model with multiple cost models for rates for different types of services, and that is required by the federal government.
So are the rates sufficient to pay for services of STS?
Yes,
Okay. And then has STS always been funded this way?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. We do have several other folks on the list. Let's go to Deputy Speaker Zachary. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioner and team. Some questions related to the data center. In 23-24, I believe there was a $6.7 million appropriation for various aspects of the data center equipment, servers. Was that appropriate funding for that? Did that accomplish the goal?
It did for that year. Each year, though, requires different upgrades and different improvements. I might add, though, that we are working to decrease our data center footprint and move from so that would decrease the cost for equipment, not entirely, because there are certain pieces of the infrastructure, for instance, our network and the connections from network to data centers. But we have currently two state-owned data centers that STS runs, and we are working to move to one. And we can do that because of our move to the cloud. That was a long answer to your question to say the appropriation in 23-24 was appropriate. There are a few more modernizations and increases in this year for both on-prem and cloud.
So the additional I believe it's 4.1 non-recurring. Is that for the North Data Center?
Yes.
Okay. Is the North Data Center the one that is being relocated?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then how did you determine the $40 million number for the relocation? What's associated with that? Is that also a cloud migration? Is that physical move? What does that $40 million encompass?
It is mostly setting up two connections. So as we move out of that data center, moving some of the compute that is needed, one in Dallas, one in Virginia, setting up the needs to continue to process. So it's cost for establishing those connections, the physical cost to move equipment and to move out, remove equipment, and then some consulting costs to help us with that move.
And so is the North Data Center, which that's the one being relocated, correct? So make sure, right? So where is that being relocated to? Did you say Virginia?
Virginia and Dallas, and then some will go to our South Data Center, which is in Smyrna.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Speaker Zachary. Next on the list is Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner and team, for being here. I had some questions about the Violent Crime Intervention Fund. We, of course, with your leadership and our support, we've committed $150 million to this fund over, I guess, starting in 23-24. It did establish, when we originally established this fund, it did create 5 full-time positions. Those in order to distribute those funds. The question is, did we fill all those positions, and will we be utilizing these non-recurring revenues in order to maintain those positions going forward?
Thank you for that question. Yes, we did fill all 5 of those positions.
The grants that were provided to the local law enforcement agencies were required to have evidence-based practices as a part of the strategy for deploying those funds. Could you give me an update on those practices and what we saw as a result of that first $150 million tranche?
Yes, absolutely. So
It's okay.
For the evidence-based practices, we've really focused on proven things that are on the crimesolutions.gov website. So we required all of our law enforcement agencies to use the crimesolutions.gov information so that they could identify which law enforcement interventions they were planning to do. So each of the grants does have a connection to one of those evidence-based interventions.
As a follow-up to the spending, do they send you those evidence-based reports for review to make sure you can take those in consideration, particularly since we're investing another $130 million this year?
Absolutely. One of the things that we do is we have an annual report, and our team compiles those annual reports. We put together information for local, and we can share information with you if you have specific questions that you have. But we take those annual reports, we compile them so that we can see the benefits. We also go on site with those 5 staff people, and we visit each of those locations to make sure that those interventions have been implemented appropriately, because you can say you're doing an evidence-based intervention, but if you're not implementing it appropriately, then it's not actually doing what the evidence has demonstrated. So that's another way that we go out and we make sure.
Okay, so of the $130 million though we proposed this year, $100 million of that is what we would consider the new traditional funding for, but then there was $30 million that was direct to those, to this group. My question is, what differentiates the two pots of money and what makes them different?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The difference is really because we had the $30 million in the original budget, and we added a new $175 million tranche that we can talk more about. That includes $100 million to be added to VCIF because of Jennifer and her team, frankly, and their evidence-based practices. The VCIF fund has been incredibly successful all across the state by law enforcement, because virtually every law enforcement agency has used it. It's been very successful. So we've added another $100 million to that as an effort to reinforce our local law enforcement agencies. And it just happened at kind of in 2 different tranches, but they're going to be added together to create a $130 million fund.
Okay, so my assumption is that because we stood up this new group in the 23-24 year, that the ability to deploy these funds, if appropriated, the ability to deploy these funds should be relatively quick. Could you, or when do you expect us to be able to deploy those funds?
So for the deployment, we are actually in the planning phases now. So we are hoping to be able to post things in July and be able to get funding out in hopefully by October 1, but it could be January 1, just depending on how. It's 130 million. So that's a lot of contracts.
Okay.
So it might take a little longer. And that's the back and forth with contracts is, we can get a contract ready, but then it has to go through the county or city's legal. So there's a little back and forth there that happens.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I just want to add, one of the process that they go through for accountability gets a little bit complex. And I know sometimes there's a little bit of frustration that these funds take a little time to get out. But there is a lot of accountability. There's a lot of evidence that has to be done. There are contracts that have to be done, and all of those things have to be done on both the local level and the state level. Jennifer and her team do a terrific job at making that happen, and they'll do all they can to get these out as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just one last question. The remaining $75 million for downtown safety grants, those will be distributed by the OCJP, or will they be submitted by the OCJP?
I believe so. We're still working with legislative leadership on exactly how those are going to be distributed to the downtown areas for crime prevention. But I believe the current plan is for OCJP to manage those funds.
Is there a limit? Is there a limitation? Ryan Williams downtown is dramatically different than maybe my good friend from Collierville's downtown or Memphis. Just wondered if there was a population density as it relates to the utilization of those funds, or is it statewide? It just has to be for something downtown.
Yeah, we're working very hard with legislative leadership to get all that worked out before the amendment drops next week. So we're going to be working through that. What we do know is that downtown areas typically have some of our highest crime rates, and so we want to be able to kind of focus on that and address it. So we're hitting the highest crime rate areas, but we're working with the legislative leadership to be able to do that.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. Next on the list, Leader Camper. Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for your presentation. with respect to STS and how we believe that industry sometimes outpace government with respect to technology and what's going on, I think you've been doing a great job. I had a question around cybersecurity and, just how safe our information is. Have there been any intrusions or potential, not necessarily that they were successful, but could you give us an update on the cybersecurity?
Yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to. We are really under constant attack is a strong word, but our network, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we block over, I believe it's over 1 million attempts to access through email, as well as our network. Through previous funding by the legislature, as well as ARPA dollars, we have implemented a number of tools that help us much better detect and not allow those attacks or intrusion into our environment. We've also implemented, with more of the workforce working from home, we've implemented a lot of technology on our laptops that enable us to detect wherever there's an endpoint, meaning they're accessing our network, able to detect and prevent issues from that standpoint as well. We require every state employee to take a cybersecurity awareness training. And over the last few years, we've hit as high as 95% completion, which we're proud of. And we update that training every year to make it more meaningful and helpful. We also do a lot of phishing and phishing exercises to try to catch people not doing what they should be, and then make them aware and ask that they repeat parts of the training as appropriate. And we've largely seen the results of that decrease the number of clicks, if you will, on sites and links that should not be accessed. So, and I have to knock on wood because I feel like whenever I speak positively about our situation, I'm inviting karma to test us. But we have a great team, and we always are appreciative of the funding to implement the tools and technologies we need. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that update. Are the people dealing with cybersecurity? Well, no, I asked you that offline. I don't want that on the record. I asked you that offline. People are listening.
Yes.
No, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Chair Lady Moody, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so this is just kind of a throwing it out there. We've talked a lot about crime, and I know in West Tennessee, we are woefully, we just have no space for the pre-adjudicated violent juveniles, a facility to house them. And so the effect of that is when we have that in our county, we have to take 2 officers off their job to sit in a hotel with this juvenile until they get into a court. And so, we want everything to be done right and all, but that is making our population now underserved. And so I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if in all that you do, if you can get with me later, if this is making any bells go off, that another way that we could look for some funding for this facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We'll be glad to talk to you about that. I think, I don't know exactly all of it because I'm not in the justice system, but there's probably multiple levels of that we can talk about what that looks like. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here this morning. Good morning. Good Monday morning. Couple of questions. I was looking at your cost increase history on that continues from page 3. And on that, you've got $5 million, I believe, I want to get that, for Haywood County Transportation. Is that money being used, or has it already been used? Or can you just talk about that a little bit? We are on the cost increase history continuing from page 3.
Which form are you on, Representative Shaw? Are you on our presentation?
I believe I am. Finance Administration, yes, sir. Green, yes.
Oh, the green sheet, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with it. Anybody on the panel here? We'll have to get back to you on that.
Follow up with you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just like I think I know what that is, but I'm not really for sure, but I'll just wait till you get back. And one other quick question, in that same category, you've got $250,000 for fiscal year 23 and 24 for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, but it doesn't go into 25. I'd like to also get a comment about that if I could.
As we'll be glad to get back to you on that. As memory serves, there was an event I think that we were supporting at that time. If memory
Okay.
serves me correctly.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hulsey. Chairman Hulsey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Over the last two budget cycles, we appropriated $35 million for a couple of evidence-based programs dealing with local jails. One that had a mental health connection to it, and the other was reentry. And my question is, has all that money been expended or spent? And is there data that was collected to show that those programs have been successful in those two areas?
Director Brinkman.
That's a great question. Thank you. So in terms of the money being spent, no, it's not spent. It's predominantly obligated. We have about 7 million. I'll have to get the number exactly for you. But there is some that we have an open and rolling solicitation. And so what we're doing is we're working with CTAS, the County Technical Assistance, their jail program, to help us identify jails and bring them up to speed so that they can implement the program. And then they help them with writing of the grant. So that's one of the technical assistance things that we've put into place. In terms of evidence, they are required to do an annual report. And so we have quite a few wonderful stories about what's happening there. So happy to get you some data on that if you would like some data.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, is evidence-based that you have data that does show that. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Hawk. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner and your team. Thank you so much. There's dozens of different line items that we can pick at and look into. And I do want to look at one of the line items. We're looking at 5.6 additional dollars for the Governor's Rural Education Foundation. We're set up to help college access, college readiness for folks. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that foundation. We've had $12.5 million in. We're looking for another 5.6 million. What we're doing with that and the effectiveness of those dollars.
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. These are going toward, this is one of those programs that goes toward helping prepare students to go to university. A lot of times, as you all know, in our rural areas, we have a lot of students who've never, nobody in their family has ever been to college before. So they don't really understand the process. They don't understand what it takes, and they don't understand how to be able to pay for it. And these are programs that connect with students, I think, in about 9th grade, actually, to be able to help them to move through that process and to understand how they can actually achieve a college education and most times be the first person in their family to ever do so. And so it's actually a game changer for these students and also for their families. And as you know, because education changes everything, it actually cascades through generations. So it's a really vital program.
And I will brag, up in our neck of the woods with Chairman Hicks and the folks from Northeast Tennessee, the Niswonger Foundation does some amazing work in that space. And they do incredible work there at all 17 high schools in the region, working in the rural areas of Tennessee to ensure folks have a career path and do what they love. And that's been great. Is there a rational basis as to why we're set up as a foundation as opposed to under the Department of Education? And if you don't have a response, you can get back to us on that.
If it's okay, let me get back to you on that.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. I was behind about 6 weeks.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Hogg. Next on the list, Chairman Grills. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good to see you this morning as well. In 23-24, $1.5 million in recurring funding was allocated for the Governor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Initiatives to fund the payroll expenses of 14 staffers. Last year, 24-25 budget, that same money was reappropriated for grants for the foundation. You follow me?
Yeah, I believe I believe that's recurring that we have in this year's budget as well.
So is the 1.5 million recurring paying for the 14 staffers?
Well, it's going to it is a grant to the foundation, to the Office of Faith-Based Initiatives, which is an independent organization, and is going to that independent organization that will use it how they need to.
So it's not paying for the staffers, it's being used for something else.
They could be paying it for, my understanding is they could be paying it for staffers, but that's really their decision.
So the foundation, the initiative is still it's operation under the foundation. Oh, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, I have no one else on the list. All right, Commissioner, thank you and your staff, and you're recognized for any final statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to say thank you all for your questions and your attention today, and for your pain and for how much you care about the state. I'm very proud to represent the Department of Fabulous and Awesome, and I think our people do a wonderful job. And you see up here some of the leadership, and in the audience here, just some amazing folks that serve the state well. I want to recognize one of those amazing folks before I leave, and that is Stephanie Dedman. As you are very aware, and we talked about, IT is so important to everything that we do in this state, both from the opportunities that it provides us related to things like artificial intelligence, as well as keeping us away from bad actors and keeping our data and our people safe. And our state CIO is the point of the spear on that. Not only that, but over the last 6 years, she has been responsible for consolidating from about 20 different agencies into one agency. Many challenges. We talked about billing. That's one of the challenges. Many challenges with consolidating 20 agencies into one. And she has done it with professionalism, expertise, and grace. And we are so glad to have had her for the last 6 years. She has announced that she is retiring. And as of June 30th, she will be leaving us. And she has done a super job. As far as I know, unless you all call her back, this will be her final presentation in front of the committee. And I will also say that she is, one of the reasons she is retiring is she just told me that today she expects to be a grandmother. So she is on pins and needles.
Thank you.
Stephanie is retiring.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Again, thank you and your team for being here. All right, we will transition now into the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation with Director Roush.
We're 20 minutes early.
And we are running a little early, so. Hey, Ryan, that's 2 weeks for you. That's at least 2 weeks. I can, once I get started, I can walk over there. I'll let Ryan do it. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're very welcome.
It takes Jason a little while.
All right, Director Roush, thank you and your team for being here, and thank you for being accommodating. I know we're running a little bit early, so we do appreciate you for running over. All right, members, without further ado, we'll turn it over. Gentlemen, I'll just let you know we will control your microphones from up here. So if you'll just, before you answer, just pause, wait for the red light to come on, and then you may begin. So Director Roush, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great to be here with you and the committee this morning. I'm David Roush. I have the honor of serving as the Director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. And here with me this morning, to my right, is our Deputy Director, Brad Nealon, and to my left is our Fiscal Director, Brian Senecal. We are here this morning to present the budget. Let me just start by saying we have been extremely blessed and appreciative of the support that this body has provided to the Bureau since my tenure. And 7 years now, it's moving really quick, actually. So, but we are very appreciative of the support we have received. In our requests this time, we have a few mostly personnel requests. We are attempting to assure that all the needs of the Bureau are met. As we have grown, we have found that there are still areas where we need support. And so in this request, the first on the line is victim services. We're requesting 4 positions for victim services. The purpose of those positions are, as we are conducting our investigations, these are the key individuals who are responsible to assisting victims and providing them direction and guidance on where to get support as we work through their case. And then second on the list are intel analysts. We have 7 positions that throughout the Bureau in different divisions. What we have found is intel analysts are absolutely critical to investigations. They are the ones who are able to gather a lot of the core information for investigators so that the investigator can focus on the specific investigation and not so much on trying to gather information about individuals. And so they really become a key component in speeding up our investigations. Next on that list is an aviation crew, 4 members. We have our aviation unit is a highly impactful, effective unit, providing not only for the Bureau, but for all of our partners throughout Tennessee. And what we find is we are not able to do all the missions that we're requested to do. And so that request is for another crew to be able to meet that need that we are hit with. Next is TBI police officers. On this is 2 officers to assist in the coverage of protection for our facilities. We have a need in Memphis and a need in Chattanooga. That's where those officers will be assigned, and they additionally do background investigations for the state. Next on the list is Medicaid fraud data analytics. We have 2 positions there. Those positions are responsible for basically going through medical records to determine if there are potential fraud and abuse that has taken place in our Medicaid system. And so the great news about those positions is that the cost to the state is only 25%. The federal government picks up 75% of that cost. Next, the last on our position ask is our administrative support positions. Again, as we have added to the Bureau, we've found pain points within the organization, human resources, legal, and in our communications. And so those are the three positions that we have asked to fill. And then last in our request is a wastewater testing pilot project. And those monies are actually coming not from the general fund, but from opioid abatement funds. The purpose of that is we're going to do a pilot project in East Tennessee, and the idea is it's really more about prevention, working with the Department of Health, the Department of Mental Health, education, and to be able to early identify drugs that are coming into our system. Right now, it's a reactive system where we have to wait for months, if not years, before we know where there's new drugs that are coming into our system. And so this actually will provide us early indications of what's out there so that we can be a little more nimble and quicker to respond with prevention and treatment services is the idea behind that program. And with that, Chairman, I'll yield to you and the committee.
Thank you, Director Roush, and you and your team for your hard work. Sorry about changing quarterbacks here for a minute, but we do have a list of members here for questions. First on my list is Representative or Leader Cochran.
Right here somewhere. He's not signed in.
Oh, my fault. This is
It's all right. We'll let him get signed.
This is my fault. Sorry.
We'll let him get signed in. Next on my list, Chairman Bond. Chairman Bond.
Thank you, Chairman Williams. I see in your budget that you are requesting a little over $1 million for 4 new positions for a second aviation unit. And the Department of Safety also has an aviation unit in their Special Operations Division. And I guess my question is, how do you coordinate with the Department of Safety? Is there any duplication here, or are these complementary?
Director.
Thank you, Chairman. These actually are complementary. So 2 different approaches in our uses of aviation assets. So theirs are primarily helicopter. And primarily theirs are utilized for overwatch during their operations and of course responding when they have chases and those kind of things going on. Ours is more strategic utilization. And so our operations are more surveillance for operations. We do overwatch as well from 10,000 feet, a little higher up than the helicopters. And so it's a different operational tempo. As well, ours is used for transporting our agents to locations where suspects may be, to do interviews, to collect evidence. Some of those are throughout our country. So the fixed wing is what we need to get to where we need to be in order to do those operations. And so it's got a really diverse approach. Now, to talk about the coordination, we actually work close with our teams. Just recently, we put just last week one of our operators that operate the surveillance equipment. Because THP didn't have somebody available, we sent our person over to assist them in their operation, and so and they do the same for us when we need someone to assist us. So they're cross-trained. Technical flight operators is what we call them, and they're cross-trained in their efforts. Different, kind of similar machines, but different. But it's great to have that ability to cooperate and coordinate. We also, in our missions, we coordinate those operations as well. There are many times where both assets are in the air, where our asset is up high, theirs is down low, and we work in coordination with each other. So they're very complementary.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Leader Cochran.
All right, I'm online now. Thank you very much. Director, so I've got a few questions regarding a very, I don't know, I guess a unique pilot project that TBI is doing. And so the proposed budget includes $3 million non-recurring from the opioid abatement fund to support a wastewater testing pilot project. So during the governor's budget hearings, TBI stated that this project would be focused on the Knoxville area. It'll cover 16 dorms, 12 public high schools, 120 ad hoc investigations at TBI's discretion. So give us a little bit more information about that. So what sort of testing will be conducted for this pilot project?
Thank you, Leader. So the way these operations work, this isn't anything new. It's new for us, but they're being conducted throughout the country, and we have read a lot of really promising information. The idea is to really get a feel for what's happening in specific areas. It doesn't pinpoint the location of the use, but what it does is what they do is they test the wastewater. And they're able to identify the specific drugs that are in that system, and even the amounts of it. What that helps us do then is to be able to target those populations with prevention information, treatment information, in a manner that we are unable to do right now. Right now, we're really reactive in the way we do things. This would make it more proactive in that effort. And so the other piece to that is you talked about the enforcement piece. That really comes as if we have complaints in the communities about a location that they suspect is a drug location. What we can do is draw water in that community. It won't tell me the house that it's happening at, but it give me the block. And so that helps in order to pinpoint kind of surveillance in order to be able to try to hone in on where the house might be. And so it really kind of has a robust potential.
Okay. And then how do you measure success?
Yeah, so I think success will be measured in this one specifically with being able to early identify what narcotics are in our communities, right? So right now, for example, just last year, this body took up the issue of nitazines, or I'm sorry, of xylazine, and so xylazine was something we had never heard of. But then it started to pop in our lab, and so then this body took up and helped us making that an illegal substance because of what we were seeing. It much more potent and dangerous than fentanyl. I mentioned nitazines; those are now popping in the lab, right? And so what this will do is give us an earlier indication instead of having to wait until it shows up in the lab. We'll get an early indication to be able to know what drugs are hitting our communities and be able to be quicker in the response to them.
Okay. And then just a couple more on that. Would you, if we consider this pilot project a success, is it something that you would look at implementing statewide? And if you have considered that, could you tell us maybe projected cost on that?
Yeah, so I would absolutely, if this shows success, we would then work with whoever the vendor is at that time to determine what a cost would be statewide. So I don't have those numbers right now, and that'll all be dependent on what we see from this pilot. The idea, concept behind pilots is trying to learn what we can to see if there's any usefulness. But if we do find usefulness, we'll then get those costs and come to the body.
Gotcha. And then just one final question. So when you do this pilot project, or if you were to expand it, is this something that we hire a third party contractor to do, or do TBI employees conduct the testing?
Yeah, thank you, sir. This is a contract.
Okay,
is the way this will work.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Cochran. Just as a follow-up there, I noticed there you may have said this, but I may have missed it too, 120 ad hoc locations. My question is that like a frat house or a personal residence, or how does that work?
Yeah, so, no, those would be based on, again, complaints. So if there's a complaint about potential drug houses in communities or drug locations, then that's what that would be based on. So whatever that location is what it would be utilized for, to try to determine if there is an issue, right? So again, if a complaint from a neighborhood says, hey, we've got a drug house in our community, what we can do is test the water in that community. If we see, so what happens, of course, if you're running a drug house, you're going to be washing utensils, washing your hands, and that's going to show up in the system, right? And so that'll tell us what's going on in that area. And then we'll have to come in with surveillance to determine if there is actually a location that we need to pay attention to.
Thank you, Director. Just there was lots of discussions about opioid abatement monies, how they can be utilized. I guess my concern is I kind of like the program, but my question is it's not rehabilitation services or something like that. Are you at all concerned if we go forward this and you do find the success that you talked about today? Is this something you think should be funded using opioid abatement money in perpetuity, or is this a one-time event?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I think that'll be dependent on what we see. I think that, again, I think it's in line with opioid abatement because of prevention efforts, education efforts, and then also knowing where to put the resources for treatment. So I think it's completely in line with opioid abatement, but I think we'd have to look further at what the results are to determine if that's the appropriate funding source.
All right. Thank you, Director. Next on my list, Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, thank you. You and your team do tremendous work, and we really appreciate you. And thank you again for recognizing the investment that this General Assembly has made in TBI over the last several years. And as you ask for new positions, if you can, and you went very clearly down the positions that you're asking for in this budget, if you could maybe address the vacancies, how frequently a position stays vacant. I know we've had 52 vacant positions with 7 being vacant longer than 12 months, but just tell us a little bit about how difficult it is to hire. Are we sought after as an organization, not only in the state of Tennessee, but the country, and just give us an idea of the hiring process.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we do have 52 vacancies. However, those are, as a matter of fact, the vast majority of those in a hiring process right now. So the majority of those are about filled since this report was submitted. There are 7 that we've seen some challenges with, and primarily those are in locations where it's a little tougher to get people to the desire to work in those areas. We've put in place some plans to enhance those positions in terms of the determining or getting people interested in working in those areas. Similar to what we've seen other state agencies do in that space. We have, again, as a result of this body's effort and investment, we have improved our salaries, which has enhanced and increased our ability to recruit as well as retain great talent. And so we've seen great results in our last hire last year with the number. So we had I think 25 or so positions. We had 900 applications. So clearly, very well sought out after the improvement to our salary, and then we put in as well a career development program that also has enhanced that effort. So all the things seem to be working. We do seem to be a place that folks want to come to work, and we're seeing great talent apply. And so we're hopeful that will continue.
Yeah, and thank you very much for that answer, and we appreciate your work. I will give a shout out to the aviation crew. I was talking to some of my colleagues. The field trip that I took up with the aviation crew at some point in time, it's fascinating, the technology that we do have. Again, not to talk too much about it, but the technology is incredible, and it is helping us solve crimes and helping us detect crimes before they may even happen. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Hogg. Next on my list, Chairman Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. Thank you for your work on human trafficking and that scourge among us, but thank you for being on top of that. I have a couple of questions, Chairman, if I may.
You may go. Yes.
Thank you. First, on the sexual assault kits, can you give us an update on the backlog status of the sexual assault kit and other nonviolent kit testing, please?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yes, and I would say the same for you. Thank you for your work in the human trafficking space. You've been a champion for us. On the sex assault kits, so as you all know, we had a very large turnaround deficit in the past with these. Again, however, this body has provided us the resources we asked for to address that. And so I'll give you the latest numbers of where we stand. Our goal with the requests we had asked is to get to 8 to 12 weeks on turnaround with our efforts. In the latest report in February of this year, we are for KID only. Nashville is at 5.4 weeks. Knoxville is 11.9 weeks. And Jackson is at 12.8 weeks. So we are just about where overall we're where we want to be, but in each location we're about 0.8 of a week off to be perfect on where we're expecting to be. The kit plus addition, that's kit only. Kit plus additional items is at Nashville 24.6. Knoxville 12.3 and Jackson 14.2. So those areas still have improvement, and we're still working toward that, as we are with all of our evidence turnarounds. I think a number that's important for me to share, and this is shows direct result of the resources that have been provided. So in February of 2024, we had 15,940 pieces of evidence in our inventory. So as of February 2025, we have 6,975. So the resources have helped us reduce that number of evidence that creates those longer turnaround times. And again, what we're seeing is every month since we've had these scientists trained up, since we've gotten them, we've seen that we are working more evidence, sending more evidence out than we are bringing in. And so that is what our goal has been, is to continue that trend as we reduce that number for turnaround.
Thank you so much for that focused and hard work there. I appreciate that. My next area of ask is on requested but not funded. You requested funding for 2 initiatives which were not funded in the budget. The first was 2.9 million non-recurring for equipment and supplies, and the second was for 1.75 million for 12 positions in the missing persons and internet crimes against children unit. So my question is, what are the details and needs of this request, and what's the effect of not receiving these funds?
Thank you, Chairman. So I would tell you on the equipment funds. So they're in that space. There are a number of things that we need for our operations and to enhance and improve and continue to work in the spaces that we have, as well as to assist our partners. So those pieces, mostly technology. In that space, a lot of it has to do with storage of data, which is costly. But a great piece of that is there, and so that need still exists. And then on the initiative with missing children and missing persons in general, internet crimes against children, that is to again to stand those units up stronger than where we are today, so that we can address the need that we continue to see. Those are pieces of what we call opportunity ask when we present those to the administration. I certainly understand that there's a finite amount of money, and so we certainly get that. And so in terms of our effort will continue to move those forward each time that we have an opportunity to present budget, in hopes that there may be the ability to attain those resources.
Thank you for that effort. I know it must be frustrating when you see the need, but like you said, we will keep asking. My second part to that, I think you answered it, just how it will affect the agency by not receiving those funds.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would tell you the impact is, of course, we have to try to figure out how we do with what we have, and so that really just has us kind of stay focused on what we can do. There are things that we would need to do, but until we get those resources, we'll keep doing what we can do.
Thank you. That's all, Chairman, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I would just like to make a point here. Seems like we're getting a lot more notifications from your department about missing persons. I'm more so than when I first got elected. Appreciate you guys doing that. And two, following up with those, I think just last week we had a missing person for a young adult child, and we got notification soon thereafter that you sorted it out. But appreciate you and your department for doing that. Next on our list, Leader Lambert.
Director, along those lines, I know the aviation unit was mentioned earlier, but just it's only been a few short years ago that we had a multiple murder in our district and in Sumner County, and it was a horrible circumstance. And as they were searching for that murderer who had killed his family, next door neighbors, one of the most horrendous crimes that ever come through our county, you had a plane in the air and you were vectoring individuals into exactly where this person was hiding in the woods, laying in wait, trying to kill officers. And it saved, I don't know how many of our officers' lives. So I just wanted, again, I don't know that I've thanked you publicly for that. It's been a few years, but it's just one example of there's never a time that I know of where any of our local law enforcement folks have contacted y'all and you haven't just done everything within your ability to be able to help them and keep people safe. And so I just speaking on the aviation unit specifically and bragging on those guys, but everything else y'all do, I mean, we've invested a lot over the years of the people's tax dollars and money in y'all, and you've used it well. So just wanted to thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Leader. Next on my list, Representative Sparks.
Director Roush, I always appreciate your heart. I know your heart's in the right place. The leader was really bragging on you just now, but I know the drug problem has affected, you've opened up, talked about, has affected your family personally. It's affected my family personally. Last night, I do a radio show and I had some guys with a group, Men of Hope, and we're trying to reach some young people. The lack of fathers, lack of positive male role models. Chairman Moody was talking about juvenile crime. Juvenile crimes is very expensive to incarcerate a juvenile, as this committee, and But what advice would you offer this committee or just legislators in general, whether it's the Department of Education or where else, how do we really change this cycle that we seem to be on, that I don't think we can incarcerate our way out of the problem, but what advice would you tell us to reach these young people?
Yeah, thank you, Representative. That's the $1 million question, right? I think there are a number of things that need to take place. Frankly, as we look at the impact that drugs and mental health issues have had, with our young people, I think, and then as you mentioned, the family structures, there are a number of societal challenges that add to these issues that ultimately, unfortunately, land in the realm of policing. I think there are investments that certainly could be considered and need to be looked at in terms, in all of these social areas, right? Everything from education, housing, employment, mental health. There are a number of areas, I think, that if we took a comprehensive approach, that we could start to make a difference in this space. It's a big issue, but it's not impossible. And I applaud you for the work that you're doing in that space. It is tough. I mean, even in the areas where you have strong family involvement and engagement, society still has its impact on individuals.
Yes. That group, if anybody wants more information, it's the leadermill.org. Dan McAnally was on with me. Maybe I can get you to come be a speaker one day.
Be happy to anytime you need me.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chairman.
Out of order. The next on my list is Leader Camper. Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for your great organization, all the great things you've been doing. For years, Tennessee, with respect to human trafficking, has been rated very high on local, national, international organizations. We've constantly received an A on their report cards. I mean, no matter where I go on any national conference, they're talking about the great work Tennessee has been doing over the years with respect to human trafficking. And I even remember the task force and all the things we did to get to where we are now. But there was also a time when the numbers was really high in terms of the human trafficking problem. And my question is, with all the great things we're doing, are we seeing, just from your vantage point, these numbers going down, or we're just attacking them in a very comprehensive way? Or are we seeing the numbers go down, stabilizing, or
Yeah, thank you, Leader.
plateauing?
Yeah, so we still have those same concerns, right? So the things you talked about are all the very positive things that have happened as a combination of the effort of this body, as well as our nonprofit organizations that are engaged, the non-governmental organizations that are engaged in this space. Tennessee really does have the lead on how to address the problem. We are addressing that problem. Unfortunately, we are a very huge state of, best way to put this is demand. There's still a large amount of demand in our state. And that may go back to, Representative Sparks' comments about what we do to get control of these issues. And I think society, we're still seeing some major issues with the deviancy and, and the mindset. And so it's still a problem. It's still an issue where, we've spent a lot of time since I came into office working with our team and teaching local law enforcement how to do these operations, assisting them, where before, and no fault on the previous administration, they came in with this drive to address this, and they were utilizing Bureau resources solely to get this accomplished. My belief is teach people how to fish is better than fishing for them. So we came in and started training local law enforcement on how to do these operations, and we've been working with them. So more is being done across the state to impact the problem. The problem's still persistent, and so there's still more work to be done in that space. Again, this body added positions to us that have been helpful with educating, training, and impacting the problem. And so I think we're on the right path, and I think we're way ahead of everyone else. But unfortunately, as the great things that pull people to Tennessee, the bad things do as well.
Rats. Mr. Chair. Thank you. Also, at the same time, I remember a graphic that the department did that showed human trafficking and drug trafficking. And at that time, opioids was a real problem. Are we seeing that we're making any progress there? I know we have the opioid abatement fund, and maybe that's happened. Could you give us an update on what it looks like in terms of all of the drugs coming into the state?
Yeah, thank you, Leader, on that question. So again, another area of primary responsibility, original jurisdiction is drugs for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Our team is amazing in the work that they're doing there. Every day I get reports on operations that our team is involved in. We have had great impact in this space, and really taking out some of the major players, which unfortunately are primarily now led by cartels. And we're really making an impact on taking those individuals out of the picture. And so great work is being done there. And there is a comparison and frankly, some overlap in that space. And so our team's been working very closely together to address that overlap. We're seeing, and I mentioned this in a previous hearing, what we're seeing now that the border has tightened up. We all know that there's less coming across the border. We're seeing prices on drugs increase. That's the latest report. The illegal narcotics price. Now, I will tell you, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, I am a fan of inflation on illegal narcotics. And so, and we are seeing that happen right now. And so that tells me things are working. And so as we can reduce that supply, the key here will be working with our partners at Health and Mental Health to address those individuals, to help them get the needed resources. And I think this will lead them toward those resources because they can't afford to continue in the path they're in. So I think that's going to be a positive move toward making a healthier Tennessee and reducing the illegal narcotics here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Leader. Just want to follow up there. We would not be rated A by national groups if it weren't for the former state representative, our good friend Jim Coley, who literally had a personal experience. One of his children found out about this process and began just a phenomenal work that he began. And every time we talk about this space, I'm reminded of Jim and what a blessing he was to this body and his own community and state. And so obviously there's still more work to do. It's a very important space to protect not only our children, but all the children in the United States. And so the more we can do, the better. Next on my list, Representative Chairman Grills, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director, for being here. Maybe even along those same lines as Leader Camper, but I just want to, you can Google illegal aliens and Tennessee pops up. I know you guys have been working hard over the past years. Last year, you made a little news back in November about the Venezuelan gangs being up here and some of the trafficking that they were dealing with. Just give us an update, if you would, and kudos to you and your men and women for what you've been doing to help there.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. So the interesting is that as I was entering this room, I got cornered by a person of the media asking me about the TDA. So they certainly have been in the news this weekend. And so when we made that announcement during our budget presentation to the administration, the purpose was for awareness, right? And the key is understanding who this group is and what they do. They aren't the only ones, right? And not, and I made it very clear then, and since I've spoke about it, I've made it clear a number of times. We're talking about a criminal organization. I'm not talking about immigrants that have come across the border. I'm talking about criminal immigrants, right? I'm talking about these criminal individuals who have come into our country and they're committing more criminal acts in our communities. We saw that through our intelligence networks, the information we have available to us. That information had been shared. And the question was, did we share that information before I had presented it? That information had been shared previously. But as with all intel and how police organizations operate, there are times where information doesn't always flow to the very top, but they're at the operational levels. People have it and they're working on things. We continue to work on those issues. We've continued to capture individuals connected to that violent gang and hold them accountable. And we'll continue those efforts as well as the efforts with all the other, the organizations that are here. I mentioned the cartels. We have had a lot of impact on cartel members and those affiliated with those cartels in our state, and those individuals have been brought to light. There was a recent federal indictment that we were engaged with that did involve members of the Venezuelan prison gang, and so our efforts continue in this space to address these issues. And so, regardless of their immigration status, if they're here committing crime, I don't care where you're from. We're going to root you out and we're going to hold you accountable. That's our mission.
Has the federal government been a help?
Oh, the federal government has been a great help. Specifically, Homeland Security Investigations is a great partner with us. But in addition to all the alphabet, as I call them, the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the Secret Service, they're all engaged in this effort with us.
And I understand, drug traffic we're hearing that. I-40 is not far from my district. And every day it seems that there's another drug bust on I-40 running from our southern border. And, I know you guys are working hard to combat that, but anything we can do to help as a General Assembly, we want to do what we can. And I appreciate the effort you guys put forth.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Director. And I'm going to hand the reins back over to Chairman Hicks and for some follow-up questions.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Williams. And kind of going along that vein, Director, I can remember 10 years ago when I was sitting in finance, and I remember hearing the presentation from TBI, and they began to kind of tie it all together with all the interstates that we have coming into our state. And with that, we are perfectly located, but unfortunately, we're perfectly located. And so can you talk a little bit about some of the crimes that just overall that we're seeing, and what are we doing? Are we making, are we moving the needle at all? And what else can we do as a state to kind of protect our citizens?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We are moving the needle. I would tell you year to year as we watch the overall crime stats, that what we see, they go up and down. I mean, that's normal. It's crime is cyclical. It always has been. But the areas we watch, primarily are the areas of violent crime, which are the areas that really are the most impactful to our communities. And so we have seen good, steady decreases in violent crime. Not declaring victory. I use the analogy that, when you're 100 feet underwater and you drop 20 feet, you're still 80 feet underwater, right? And so I think we still have more to do. There's still more work to be done, but I will tell you, our partners in the local and federal and state agencies that we work together with to address these problems has never been better. Our sheriffs and our chiefs are dedicated to the mission of protecting our communities in Tennessee. Our federal partners couldn't be better. And so, mention the interstates. Our highway patrol does an amazing job of protecting us by the work that they do, not only interdiction, but just in general safety. And so I think that we have all of the right tools. I think it's again, what this body has done and this administration has done is invest in those tools. And I think those investments need to continue in order for us to continue to see success.
All right. Thank you, Director, for that update. All right, members, I have no one else on the list. Chairman Hawk, you're recognized.
And thank you, Chairman and Director. As I sit here listening to the presentation, great job as always. Thank you very much. And I know we've got an expansion request coming up, but as our investigative departments grow within all forms of law enforcement, I guess my question is, how do we ensure that we're not in one silo? What's our communication amongst all entities, local, federal, state, and other state entities? How are we creating a no wrong door for an individual who has an issue that they need to speak to someone? If you could just address that to a degree. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you. So there are a number of, I think, avenues, right? And I think that's what we call the whole government approach, and that is understanding the resources that we have in this great state, and we have some great resources, across the board. And so I think that one is, as I mentioned, the collaboration between local, state, and federal policing, law enforcement in our state is unmatched, frankly. The relationships are the strongest than they've ever been. And that comes from a willingness of leaders to put aside, their personal agendas and to recognize that we're stronger working together and impacting the overall safety of our state. And I think, as you mentioned, the right doors and being able to open the right doors and point and direct people in that manner. That comes a lot from the great work that's done through our associations, right? So the Chiefs Association, the Sheriff's Association, the DA's Conference, those teams do a great job of educating and providing those insights into the proper way and the best practices, if you will. I don't call them best all the time because I think there's always a way to get better. So, those promising practices, if you will, I think as we look at the whole system, I think that we're doing really good work, but we can't rest on our laurels. Every day we got to get better. And I think that's the push that we see with our leaders in this state in policing.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Hogg. I have no one else on the list for our budget presentation for TBI. So at this time, we will go into our expansion request hearing, and Director Roush, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Chairman, again. And I appreciate the opportunity to present this rather than having to come back. I unfortunately have a travel schedule for the next 2 weeks that keep me from being able to be present. But the Bureau is requesting authorization of a budget expansion of $108,400 for one CJIS supervisor. The position is located within our TICS unit. Again, I know we use a lot of acronyms, so I'll help you with those. So TICS is the Tennessee Instant Check System, which is used for backgrounds for firearm purchases. And so the firearm background check. CJIS, of course, is our Criminal Justice Information Services division within the Bureau. The new CJIS supervisor is urgently needed to manage the development and implementation of these TICS, of the TICS training and auditing program for local courts, law enforcement agencies, and other criminal justice entities. That supervisor will have a variety of tasks, chief of which will be to oversee and assist multiple positions within the unit to ensure that they are training and auditing material and processes align with federal and state law as well as our FBI requirements. The funding of this position is accommodated through the TICS fees, which we collect for every background check. Those TICS fees and the TICS reserve are critically important in allowing the Bureau and the state to fund needed positions such as this, as well as any system updates and improvements that become needed as we recognize them. It helps us to continue to be agile with being able to stay on top of these needs as they occur. Without affecting the general fund dollars. This is a $10 fee. It's been $10 since it was created. And it is very important, I think, frankly, for the operations and within the Bureau.
All right. Thank you very much. And Director, let me make sure I heard that number right. What number was the request for?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 100. My number guys here, thank goodness, 102,000. I
thought he was going to throw the elbow. I was trying to bail you out there for you. All right. Thank you. And just want to make sure that we did get that on the record correctly. All right. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director. So I know right there at the end you mentioned the fee. I mean, there's nothing about this that will change the fee. You're just asking for an additional position in essence, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And as part of that, I bragged earlier, and y'all do a number of things really, really well. And one of the things is to respond to folks that are having trouble with the TIC system. But I have noticed just in my own district from hearing from constituents, both business owners and customers, that the TIC system seems to have been down a lot. And so would this potentially help with that issue? I just know that it seems to be kind of a constant issue out there because whenever it goes down, obviously you have a business transaction there that needs to be done safely, and it causes issues with that process. So,
yeah, Leader. So you're exactly right. So this position certainly will help us in oversight in that area. The technology side is the thing that we get challenged with occasionally. Some of the recent issues have been actually trying to upgrade the technology, and what's happened is we're still trying to figure out what the reasoning behind some of these shutdowns were. But what's happening is as they flip a switch, something doesn't happen the way it's supposed to, and it causes these problems that you mentioned where the system shuts down. We're trying to get that taken care of so that is not an issue going forward. So that again is part of the funding that we use is to get these upgrades to systems so that we don't have these issues, and it helps us to identify where those problems are so that we can quickly put that technology in place to avoid shutdown. What we don't want to happen is when those transactions are attempted that they're not able to complete.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And maybe tell the technology guys sometimes better is the enemy of good. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director. Do you see that with the funds that are currently available to you, that increasing this position would have, what kind of impact do you think it'll have on the funds that you currently collect?
Yeah, I don't believe that this position will cause, other than the cost, right, for the position. But outside of that, I don't think it has a major impact one way or the other. Reduces it for the amount that the position will incur
On a recurring basis?
on a recurring basis.
And do you know how much is in the fund or what you're proposing this year?
Yes, ma'am. We have, I had that number. Here we go. The fund has right now, the unobligated balance is 7 million, a little over 7 million.
Yeah, okay.
So we're okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Leader Camper. Chairman Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Director. Have you seen the number of reports go down over the last several years, or has the request, the $10 fee, has been pretty flat?
Yeah, it's cyclical. I think it's not a surprise that it would be cyclical. Firearm purchases kind of ebb and flow. I can tell you, we did look at the overall numbers for the past, I'd said 10 years, but I was corrected by my deputy director. It's 11 years. It's great to have a team that knows what they're talking about.
Same.
And so in terms of transactions, so in the past 11 years, what I see is kind of a steady drumbeat around 500,000, a little more than 500,000 transactions annually. Some years more, and some years just a little less. But it's been pretty steady for the past 10 years at 500,000 or more.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Further questions for the expansion? All right, if not, thank you very much. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for your presentation, Director, and for you and your team. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the Department of Tourist Development, and I don't know if they have made their way. We are running a little bit early. I'm going to jinx us, and we're going to be behind before it's over with, but we will give them a moment to hopefully get over this way. Members, we will take a 5-minute recess without objection. Seeing none, we're in recess. All right, we are now back in to our hearing. And Commissioner, if you want to go ahead and make your way up to the table, we want to thank you and your team for being here, and thank you all for accommodating us. We're actually running a little bit early, so thank you all for adjusting your schedule to be here. And as your team gets assembled there, I'll let them know we will control the microphone up here on the dais, so you'll see the red light. If you'll just be sure, we'll Commissioner, if you would, as you begin, just make your introductions, and I'll just ask you and your staff, if you'll just pause for a second once you are recognized, and that microphone will light up, and you may begin speaking. And thank you very much again for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. I'm Commissioner Mark Ezell, the Department of Tourist Development for Tennessee. Joining me, in fact, I'll just let them introduce themselves. Well, Assistant Commissioner Pete Rosenborough, Director of Research Josh Gibson, Assistant Commissioners Deborah Smith, Melanie Beecham, and Kevin Mahoney. And as you know, tourist development is such in a fortunate position to partner with an amazing industry. Really the only state agency that is in the business of generating sales tax revenue from non-Tennessee residents to benefit Tennesseans. So before we get to our budget ask, I'd like to ask Mr. Chairman if we can take 5 or 6 minutes to go over the industry, and then we'll hit our budget slide. So we've got a bunch of slides, and we'll run through them really quickly. We'll stay true to our time. But here's what's great about Tennessee. Y'all know you've been helping this happen with no state income tax, with the no state property tax, and the third lowest tax burden in Tennessee. And we're really grateful for you and your leadership. But it's also where our industry comes in, because like any successful business, 2 things matter: volume and margin. Volume for us is generating as many visitors as possible to spend as much as possible. And margin is to maximize the tax revenue from their spending. And when you combine those, that turns into profit, or in our case, tax savings for Tennesseans. So let's talk about volume. We're talking that last year was $30 billion in visitor spending. And while we call tourism real money, you can see from our huge growth of $23 billion to $30 billion, you take that $30 billion and you multiply it times 7%, it's about $2 billion that we are getting from visitors. And we will provide these slides at the end of this. Now, I want to talk about margin, because we don't talk about that quite as much. But frankly, visitors are worth more in Tennessee because our tax structure is more advantageous when it comes to visitors than in other states. In fact, bottom line, visitors contribute more to our tax revenue. So here's an example. We've got 4 states that we're chasing. They're in the top 10. In Virginia and Pennsylvania, if a visitor spends $1,000, their state and local collect $58 and $63. If they're in North Carolina or Florida, they collect $70. That same $1,000 visitor spend in Tennessee is worth $95 state and local tax. And as you can see, that what that then turns into over these last 5 years, with our doubled $50 million budget, we've significantly helped Tennessee on the volume side from 17th to 11th, becoming the fastest growing tourism state of the top 40 states in America. And then when you add that advantage that we've got in the visitor tax margin, which creates profit, what matters to you is that we got non-Tennessee residents creating the 5th most tax savings per household in the nation for our residents. It's really a big honor for us to get to be doing this. That's 70% above the national average. 2022 is the last time they've ranked them. But simply put, when visitors pay, residents benefit. So Department of Revenue also verified our phenomenal growth with our terrific industry and that extra spending, showing that our leisure and hospitality taxes, that's lodging, hotel and short-term rental, eating and drinking, and amusements and recreation, is worth about $2 billion, up about $600 million a year. And that gets us excited because we know you use those for education and safety and healthcare. So Tennessee's a sales tax state. I remember as a businessman, Governor Haslam used to say that, and I go, okay, good. No personal income tax, no state property, but we got a sales tax that we can capitalize with visitors. What does that look like? Well, last year, fiscal year 24 ending, 27% of all the new sales tax in the state of Tennessee came in through the three that our industry is doing. Hugh Morrow's behind me with Ruby Falls. He's got restaurants. He's got an attraction. He helps lodging. Thank you, Hugh, and all the other people, because they are helping bring those dollars in, and with leisure and hospitality, and why we want to keep that momentum. So this success is about telling the right story to the right audience. Here's the main way that we inspire and drive tourism and generate that tax revenue. The gold is what we were in 2019 before we went on our additional spending. Now we talk to 112 million people. Thanks to your investments and Governor Lee, y'all, that's turned into things like just in the new markets. And we've got a lot of data if you got questions later, Mr. Chair. But 2.1 million seats extra come from those markets versus 6 years ago to Tennessee airports. And what we know is that with us being with half the population is within 650 miles of right here, we get a lot of drive market and air market. So there's a daily battle for tourism dollars. Visitors got choices, and we want to keep amplifying loudly to drive that market share. A couple of more slides and we'll hit to the budget. We've been talking to visitors not only in the nation and our U.S., but also around the globe. We are the #1 fastest recovering state in the U.S. for overseas visitation. Because of your investments in Governor Lee's, again, we used that money to help us go after international flights. Happy St. Paddy's Day in Dublin, Ireland. We will go there starting April 10th direct from right here in Tennessee. ISO Iceland Air, we helped with that. Just those 2 flights are going to be worth about $125 million in economic impact. And then on a local level, and we won't go over these, but these are just some of the programs that our teams are doing in all 95 counties to drive that destination development. Just 2 of them are brand new, Bill Dance Signature Lakes and Bike TN. Those 2 alone generated over 1 billion impressions last year. And then Assistant Commissioner Beecham and her team, I've got 2 slides to cover outreach. I hope we get some questions so she can give you details. But we've done 40 roadmaps helping these hardworking rural communities learn how to get money from a visitor so that they don't have to use property taxes in those communities as much, and we get a visitor to help with that. How have we helped? With more grants than ever, with counties that are being touched by our lakes and our streams and our fishing programs and our Bike TM. Also, our Google optimization, our new photos, all those things that really try to create some value. So let's get into the budget. Thank you for your approval of Governor Lee when we got to use those federal dollars, first CARES Act and then ARPA these last 5 years. That recurring money of $25 million extra has allowed us to have this $50+ million budget. And with those funds, we teamed up with an industry and had these hundreds of millions of dollars of extra. But now we face that 60% budget reduction. So we're asking the state to take the first step in replacing those funds with $25 million. That's $10 million in new recurring. We desperately have got to get some recurring dollars because that's what the federal dollars let us have, where we could do multi-year planning, whether it's internationally or other commitments that we were trying to do, bringing with the $15 million non-recurring, a $48 million budget. So besides this request, I think your sheet looks like this. We also have the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. There's a second year of 3 years of a $500,000 appropriation to carry them through this transition period as they move from Bridgestone Arena to eventually Titan Stadium with the transition period and initial designs. So in conclusion, our passionate and talented department really gets honored to partner with an industry that is spending money to prove that Tennessee tourism is real money, delivers real returns. We built that momentum. We've grown the tax revenue. We become a top tier destination, 11th now, and we're using our volume, margin, profit, or savings for Tennesseans model. We hope you'll agree with Governor Lee's budget request and let us make some more money for Tennesseans. Thanks for your time, and we'd love to take questions.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much for your presentation. Lots of information here to unpack. We'll begin, we have several folks on the list, so we will begin with Chairman Hulsey. Chairman Hulsey, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I think for each dollar you all generate more than any other arm of government, and I think that's great. I appreciate what you do. I also got to tell you that whoever does the videos, advertisement for Tennessee is the best I ever saw. And that brings out, you said you picked these areas based on flight information. And can you talk about that for just a second, and I'll get out of your hair. That plus, what does it cost to run a video like that in that market for a month?
All good questions. First of all, sir, thank you for the compliment. Our agency, VML, does a tremendous job. They have a Nashville office. It's an international firm that does great work with Deborah and our team. She may want to add to a couple of my comments. But when we took these extra dollars, we knew we got the product. Outside of a beach and a casino, the two things we don't have that tourists love, Tennessee's got the best set of diverse assets to go after people. We just needed to tell more people. And we added not only those proximity to the drive market, but also those fly markets that were important. And we've been pleased with how they've grown. Those will depend on per market, but we might spend $200,000 to $500,000 a year in each of those markets, telling people digitally about what's great in Tennessee. We got our music, we got our outdoors, we got our kid-friendly and Dollywoods of the world. We got our cuisine, we got our history and culture. When you got all those things to tell people about, gives them a chance to come and spend money. Deborah, anything else?
Yes, sir. Assistant Commissioner Deborah Smith. Marketing. Oh, thank you. Deborah Smith, Assistant Commissioner Marketing. Great question, sir. And I would add to that all of our ads are optimized everywhere they are, which means they can switch and change depending on how well they're doing. So if they're doing well in one market, we can shift or not as well in another, it can shift those dollars a little bit. And that's constantly happening. So we're able to optimize those dollars, just as Commissioner said, what we're spending per month.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. Next on the list is Chairman Williams. Chairman Williams, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. It was great to meet with you and your staff a few weeks ago regarding some of the data that you shared with us today. I think the only suggestion I would have, I just wish you were a little more animated. It would probably improve the revenues a little bit.
Yes, sir.
But I can't imagine keeping up with you every day. But I did have a question about welcome centers. We did do interagency agreements between our 19 welcome centers and visitor centers. You now operate those instead of TDOT. Could you tell us a little bit about that agreement, how it's working, and what you see are the challenges associated with that, or if it's going well?
Great question. And we love your territory. Cookville doing some amazing things with their new convention center and what will be a hotel. Just the money's coming.
Yeah.
Representative, I'll let Pete answer. There are a total of 35, and 19 of those are rest areas and 16 are welcome centers. Those administrative pieces are finalizing all of that for us to have even more involvement in the 16 welcome centers. So the 16 are what we work on because we think we can drive tourists through those. Pete, you want to talk a little bit about that?
This is Assistant Commissioner Pete Rosenborough. Is that better? Yes. As Commissioner Ezell was saying, there's 35 what TDOT would deem rest areas throughout the state, but 16 of those are welcome centers. The admin bill that I think you're referencing is basically going to transfer money at the end of the year in June to where we have control over the dollars. But as far as the operational piece, we'll still take care of greeting guests, all the landscaping, maintenance, and things like that. Also on that maintenance piece, around November, December this past year, TDOT has now entered into a contract with Jones Lang and LaSalle, who will now take care of maintenance issues that become outside the skill set of our employees. So to answer your question, it is going really well. TDOT made the decision, they're going to focus on interstate roadways and bridges. They're going to let us, as commissioner, there's a sense of excitement. Let's take care of the tourism aspect of those welcome centers. So we're really pleased with the way it's going, and we're excited about, that admin bill that I think that comes up this week. But again, it's going to really codify the responsibility of both agencies and give us the dollars to control that in June or July of the year.
Thank you. I think when you look at the number of vacancies you have, the vast majority of those vacancies are in our welcome centers and rest areas. Is the partnership or the collaboration you're doing with JLL regarding the maintenance, are those maintenance staff folks that are vacant, or is it welcome center staff?
As of last Monday, there are 15 vacancies in welcome centers, and the majority of those vacancies, all of those vacancies will be our frontline staff, which we consider our greeters and our building maintenance workers. Rest areas, which TDOT oversees, they subcontract out. They don't have state employees in those rest areas where we do. So it'd be 15 is the number. I think we got approximately 150, 155 employees throughout the division.
One of the, I guess I would call it issues. Obviously, we're looking at putting adult changing tables in some of these rest areas, which I think is really important. One of the challenges, though, I happen to want to see a decrease in visitors at certain parts of the river where I'm trying to fly fish. But I do stop at the one there at we call it the bottom of the hill at the plateau. My question is that I'm a little bit concerned that we're bringing in all this revenue, and then when somebody drives here, they're going to stop at one of our welcome centers, our rest areas, and they're not in the condition of which they don't look necessarily bad on the inside, but extremely worn on the inside. Is there a plan? I know we spent a lot of money in parks over the last 4 years to try to update those, building new lodging areas for folks. Are we looking at, are we communicating about our rest stops and rest areas about trying to improve those just so that we don't spend all this money recruiting a visitor here only to have them say, well, their rest areas are terrible or their welcome centers are in disrepair?
Representative, it's a great question. One that we have talked with TDOT, that is their responsibility. We do believe there are some of those, Smith County that you just mentioned is one of those that has been around for more than 50 years. And we think there is a maintenance program that needs to be looked at. We've actually studied the 35 sites and have identified that first 6 or 7 for a multi-year reconstruction program. It hasn't made the budget yet each time, but we get closer and closer each year to identifying what the needs are. There's a couple of them that would probably want to be replaced. Most of them need just a serious renovation project on them.
Yeah, thank you. One of the other things that we did is we provided the ability for you to outsource security at these different locations instead of having a state employee there. Have you seen that is working? Has the safety and security of those traveling through our rest areas, has it improved?
Yes. Let me go. You mentioned adult changing stations. There are 9 out of our 16 state welcome centers have adult changing stations. So we're really excited about that. And we do have allied security at all of our centers. They're 24 hours, 7 days a week, besides downtown Memphis, which closes at 11 o'clock. But that is extremely successful. We receive comment cards, and that's one of the first things that we usually see is our guests speaking about how they feel comfortable because we have security at our centers 24/7. So we're really excited about Allied and the job that they're doing.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I do think it's good that we have a full-time presence there. I think it's really important that we do that. I will say one of the things that could probably improve that better is if we had a system of how they are actually providing security there. I think I've been to several of them that are third-party folks, and sometimes you see them sitting under a tree somewhere in the heat instead of walking a beat, if you will, at the rest area itself. So part of the presence of security is the visibility of the security there. So I think it's important if we could try to figure out a way to communicate with those security staff to make sure that they're actually seen and not just there to respond. Thank you.
Great feedback. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list is Representative Gant. You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, Yeah, back in the fall, we had Dennis was with me and we had a chance to go out to Herr Parsons Lake and get an update on some of the Bill Dance signature lakes. And Ford was one of the sponsors of the event with TWRA and several others. And we had an opportunity to test drive one of the Ford trucks, and guess who the driver was? Bill Dance. And so me and Dennis were with Dance, and we were driving, and all of a sudden Dance said, "Do you know how fast these things go within so many seconds?" And so here we go. He takes off, and I look over at Dennis, and he's as nervous as a sinner on Judgment Day, and he takes off, and we finally come to a stop, and he says, "Don't you think it's time we go back and join them at the lake?" So Dance is a big proponent of Tennessee and has been one of our biggest cheerleaders. And if you could give us an update on the Bill Dance signature lakes and the progress that we're making.
Well, thank you, Representative, and thank you for your involvement in that project. And y'all, to have Bill Dance with the state fishing program, it's almost unfair to everybody else because what it does is allow us to brand Bill Dance and those lakes. Last year, Governor Lee and y'all approved an extra $10 million in working with our great partners at TWRA to get that project continue to move. But we've got 14 lakes that are going to be in 39 counties. It's already working. Hardin County is probably and Dennis, we could talk all day about it. But Hardin County basically took a lot of the fishing tournaments that used to be on the Alabama side of that and put them on the Tennessee side. So now we're doing the dollars that come with that lodging and those restaurants and those boaters being there. And our Giant Bass Open that started last year, Bass Pro has already said this looks like a tournament that has been in business for years. And they just started their second annual this year, and it was twice as big as last year's beginning. When you got Bill Dance, you get a recognizable brand like that. It's just helps people want to come and fish our lakes. We want them to spend the money. And if they'll spend that money, it creates tax revenue. Dennis and the team have done a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the total investment? 15?
Total will be with TWRA's money, and they've got close to 10 million in, will be about $25 million. Some of that came through our state parks, another great partner. We're filling up their lodges because of fishing tournaments in those places, which was exactly part of the business model to do it.
And who all are the partners that helped us with this project?
You've got TWRA is the biggest one, and they've got many dollars. And fortunately, they're seeing nice results through their fishing licenses and those pieces. TDEC and Tennessee State Parks, us, and then we have a private side that helps for key things like the Fords and the Bass Pros of the world.
Right. And lastly, what do you think the timeline is on finishing this project?
We'd like to be done by the end of 26. We'd like to get signage up. We've got some projects that are above the water, some bathrooms, some things that are those fisher amenities that take a little bit of time through the process. But we hope in 26 we're camera ready for everything. Good news is we're already getting a lot of benefits in the meantime.
Yeah, and I think one of the big projects that, or part of this overall project, was to focus on children and the introduction of fishing in some of the lakes. And I know Herr Parsons Lake has a certain area that's being set aside just for like fishing rodeos and that kind of stuff. So it's a great project to be involved in. I appreciate all y'all's help in making this come about. And I know Bill Dance is very proud of this as well. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Chairman Hale. Chairman Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. Kind of echoing off of Representative Chairman Williams, your passion, your enthusiasm when it comes to tourism and what we're doing. A couple of questions. FY 21-22 budget provided for $2.3 million recurring for the continued implementation of the Rural Destination Development Program within the department. So first of all, what are some examples of the department's work to develop rural destinations and how is the recurring fund utilized?
Great question. And again, something we'd spend 30 minutes on if we had the time. It has been a huge success. The $2.3 million was mostly used for people that could go and work in those communities. Because again, it's not a surprise that a lot of our most rural communities don't get a lot from Visitor. So Melanie Beecham, and I'm going to let her talk in just a second about a few details, but one that I'm super excited about is we've helped them put in an occupancy tax. We call it a visitor tax because only visitors are the ones that are spending on the occupancy tax. Just in the counties that her team is working with, those 45 counties, is the occupancy tax is up 160%. Millions of new dollars for those communities. So Melanie, I don't want to take too much time, although it's just it's so missional in what we're getting to do. Not giving fish anymore, but teaching people how to fish by helping them with a boat and a fishing rod. Melanie?
Hi, Melanie Beecham, Assistant Commissioner of Rural Tourism. So as the commissioner said, we've actually been doing a lot in these communities. I'll use Smithville as an example. We have gone through our Google optimization, which the commissioner mentioned, which gives our guests a better gives our communities a better presence online. We've also done photography and video for 50 counties actually now, and then itinerary building and new branding. In fact, Smithville just switched from, we created a new brand that's around Center Hill Lake. Naturally, that's their driver and that's what their brand should be. So Suzanne's really excited about that. But in many of our other counties, we're doing the same thing. We're really arming them with the right tools to be able to market themselves as a tourism destination. In addition to that, we are doing education. So it's not just about handing it over, doing it for them, but teaching them how to do it. And we've also seen success in some of our communities that don't have a full-time person to building up their tourism office and to have somebody dedicated to tourism all the time. Because what we see is in these communities that maybe don't have a hospital, which means they're not going to have industry, but they have 2 rivers and a lake, that is their industry. And so it's really been rewarding to see the progress that are being made in these communities, and we're going to continue to see it.
Okay. And final question, Chairman, what types of economic impacts have been realized as a direct result of this program?
Do we want to talk about data, or how do we want to go about that?
Well,
We've got a couple of different data points, I think.
We had 84 counties last year. I'm going to let Josh, our Director of Research. Y'all, tourism is really a serious business in Tennessee. So taking those dollars and making sure we're generating the new dollars. So we create sales tax revenue reports for those mayors. You got an example in Grundy County. 5 years ago, they were getting $5,000 through their occupancy tax. Last year was $500,000. He now is paying his debt service with visitor money, as he likes to tell people. Got the same kind of thing in places like Jackson and others where they literally had no money. And that's just the occupancy tax. So you can take the sales tax at another 2.5% or about half that again and generate the money. Josh, anything you would like to add?
Hi, Josh Gibson, Research Director. Yeah, so I would say the key to economic impact is having people spend the night. Like that is the number one way. And so from fiscal 19 to fiscal 24, those counties that he referenced have gone from $3.3 million in occupancy tax collections, which is assessed on every short-term rental night, every hotel night, every campground stay, if those are qualified for it. They've gone from 3.3 to 8.6 million. And those are directly correlative to people spending the night, getting taxes in place that are able to collect that, but then also for people to actually spend their night in those communities. So that would be the easiest place for us to say, other than broadly the 80 something counties that have gone up year over year. That's the real dollars in those communities, and some of that I would point out would be the legislative decision in 2021 to collect from short-term rentals on behalf of communities at the Department of Revenue has been instrumental and life-changing to these communities. There are communities that were getting nothing and are going to hundreds of thousands of dollars now because they're able to collect on the short-term rentals. So just would point that out as well as a fantastic collaboration.
Okay. One more question if I can, Chairman. So in talking about these short-term rentals, I've had a couple of conversations with county clerks that are concerned that we've got some that are flying under the radar and we're not getting those taxes, not getting that revenue. So Is there something we're trying to do to make sure that we're getting those and not leaving anything out there?
Yes, sir. Great question. But it is also, and Josh may have an addendum to this, but we thought that's the best way we can help them with their business. Because again, they weren't collecting all of it. So we've met with both CTAS and MTAS to talk about how you make people register. Because most of those organizations need to be registered and the county clerk needs to be. It's a small business. They might generate $30,000 to $50,000 worth of income during a year. And we want that income because if you get night, you get dinner and you get breakfast, and all of a sudden the sales tax model keeps on growing. Josh?
Josh Gibson, Research Director. This is a little bit of a passion area for me, but so I'm glad to speak to it. The Department of Revenue is collecting the lion's share of short-term rental because the lion's share happens on the online marketplace facilitators. But there are opportunities where, and we are actively exploring with the department to make sure that either communities are educated on how they can handle the kind of exposed areas, if you will, and to make sure that any gaps that are possibly are able to be closed or closed. So the types of areas that would be indicative of that would be like, if I were to call you up and say, hey, I know you got a place up there. Can I Venmo you some money? and just get in that, which would be great, but then it's on you as the owner at that point to report that locally. That's not within the current jurisdiction of the short-term occupancy collection process at the state. So those are opportunities where what we found is that the size and the scope of that industry is it's so easy to get in. The barrier to entry is pretty low. And so the size could be double the restaurant industry, I mean, not necessarily in how much they're bringing in, but in the actual physical numbers of units that are happening. And sometimes that's just too hard for a clerk that's working the counter 5 days a week to be able to stay on top of. So we are working still to identify. It's a little bit like herding cats, short-term rental owners, but that is our that is our hope and belief that things like registration processes at the local level will help them identify and will help them to be able to share the same kind of monthly reporting cadence that they do with hotels and campgrounds and other lodging assets in those communities.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the work y'all are doing. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. And members, I do have several more folks on the list and our time is almost up. So I'll just ask everyone to just be brief with your questions and brief with your answers. All right, Representative Parkinson, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you go back to the international map slide that you had up earlier? Okay, thank you for that. And let me say this: I truly appreciate the effort that you guys are doing. Look, can you tell me? And I guess this would be directed at you. I'm a marketer by profession. What does that Tennessee tourist demographic look like? What's our target?
In international specifically? Sorry, Deborah Smith, Assistant Commissioner Marketing.
So if you were to put it, whether it's international or domestic, if you were to put it in a sweet spot, what does that individual look like? I know we want everybody, so please don't give me the, we're marketers, so let's talk marketing language.
I'm with you.
Right,
Yes,
what's
sir.
the sweet spot? What's our sweet spot?
So demographic 35 to 70. Broad range families, definitely family targets, couples. A good middle to high income. Really with the size of the state and the variety we have across the state, we really do have things to offer for all levels. As you said, you want everybody, but we recognize the sweet spot in kind of that area.
And thank you for drilling in
Yes, sir.
in for me. I look at looking at the map, and in our target, I don't see. Well, let me rephrase that. With the exception of South America, any countries of color on there. But I do see South America, and there's that is definitely a country of color. I also look at the and y'all just bear with and just see where I'm going with this. I look at the amount of revenue that's generated in the Caribbean countries, from Europeans that are traveling over into, places like Jamaica and other places, and they're spending billions and billions of dollars. But they're spending that money, because, they're absorbing or want to absorb the culture of those Caribbean countries, right? Such as, you see Europeans going over to Jamaica and getting their hair braided. You see them enjoying the music, the food, well, they got beaches. We don't have that, but we have everything else. And I think we miss an opportunity in targeting, our county with that Black culture opportunity there. And it's unfortunate. I think we spend more time beating up on Shelby County than looking at it as the gold mine that it truly, truly is. And so, can you speak to that briefly, if you don't mind? Or I think the commissioner wants to say something to it too.
Well, I was just going to say, last year we hosted the International Travel South in Memphis. That was 400 tour operators and journalists from all over the world. And we got to showcase that with Kevin Kane and that group. So Memphis is really important to us. They've got a number of reasons why people want travel internationally for Elvis and National Civil Rights Museum, as well as we're just blessed because people know Dolly and they know Jack and they know so many of the different opportunities that we can chase people with. And then we are pursuing some that are south of the United States, but that's where most of that work's being done with BNA in our Nashville airport as we are pursuing some direct flights.
I appreciate that. Last question. Memphis Motorsports Park. That is what I would consider the Liberty Bowl in my backyard, right? Is there anything that we can do to get the Memphis Motorsports Park back on the NASCAR schedule? We used to have the Truck Series back in the day, and we would bring in about 40,000 to 60,000 visitors over a weekend, and 72% of those were outside dollars. And so I would really, really like to see us make a really, really true concerted effort to get Memphis Motorsports Park, back in the swing of things and back to, generating, those outside dollars for us, because there's a connection. The same demographic of the fan that attends Memphis Motorsports Park also attends Bass Pro, also attends Graceland. And so there's a trifecta there where we can create a larger and longer stay, in the Memphis area, if we simply just put the Memphis Motorsports Park back into play.
It's great.
And Bill Street. Yeah.
That's great feedback. We're really proud of what our industry's done in racing. We've now gone from 2 NASCAR races to 4. 3 NASCAR and 1 now on the Grand Prix side. Most of that has to do with the track and the ownership pieces, because most of those are around those. We work very closely. Jerry Caldwell is on our Tennessee Tourism Committee. Each of those generate $40, $50, $60 million when they come into the marketplace. So we'll continue to look into seeing how that is on the track and ownership. But we're talking about racing, and then there's this little baseball game we got coming up this fall that we should set a national record with, that we're getting to be a part of. Again, because you helped with the mega event fund and with pieces that allow us to market to people.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you. Next on the list, Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what I'm taking away from our meeting here today is when I see somebody that I don't know who they are, I don't need to say, y'all ain't from around here, are you? Need to say thank you for visiting. Well, let's talk about, let's get back around to this budget request you have. I know your folks came by and did a great job of telling me what type of return we'd seen on the ARPA funds that we'd been spending on advertising, but I saw where y'all cut your advertising, you reverted back about $250,000, but then you're asking for 25.1. That's a slick trick. I like that. Oh yeah. I would have reverted more, frankly, but you're asking for 10 million recurring and 15.1 non-recurring, I believe.
Yes.
And you're calling it marketing initiatives. Could you tell us the difference between marketing initiative and ad buys? How do y'all break that up? And what do you see as the difference between what are you going to use the recurring for? And is there a specific effort for the 15.1 non-recurring?
It's a great CFO question, sir. And one that really what happened with the 25 million that we were getting in on the grant side on the ARPA every year, because it became recurring, we got to see the power of recurring. We've asked a few times in the last several years for recurring, for some of that budget to become recurring, because we were spending it each year. And it was really important that those commitments could stay true for the next year. Fortunately, the federal dollars, when it became recurring, allowed us to enter these markets on multi-year programs. Just like Dublin, Ireland will be a multi-year program, Reykjavik, Iceland will be a multi-year program. That's why we're asking for some of that to be put in as a recurring side for what we are doing. Most of the money in our marketing initiatives is on the promotional side, talking to those 100 million people through our digital efforts to make sure they are knowing about all the reasons why someone wants to come to Tennessee. And what we want to go ahead and do is put some of that in the recurring side, because most of those dollars, again, 48 million is going to be less than we've been spending. But it's a first step in Tennessee taking that and putting that into the budget to allow us to keep driving these tremendous returns. $2 billion from visitors. And we tell them they can go home after they come to your first question. They can go home, just leave us their taxes. But you think about a $50 million investment coming from a $2 billion from our visitors. It's one of the lowest numbers as a percentage of spend in the entire Southeast.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Yes. Does anybody want to clear up any non-ad marketing initiative?
So Kevin Mahoney, Assistant Commissioner of Administration. Sir, as far as the cut, we're required to come up with a
Let me
certain
stop you
percentage.
just for a second. Let me back up. You introduce yourself if you don't care. The
I'm sorry.
microphone was off. Go right ahead. Thank
Assistant
you.
Commissioner Kevin Mahoney of Administration. Sir, so we're required to come up with a certain percentage of our recurring to cut. And we're such a lean department that truly the last dollar out is marketing. We don't have a whole lot to cut outside of our marketing initiatives. So it really is we are asking for more marketing money because we do think it's a benefit, but we're also required to cut that same thing at the same time. So they're two separate processes within the budget, and that's why that it came out the way that it did.
Okay, just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, other than ad buys and optimizing your platforms, is there any type of marketing initiative that you have that this money will go to?
Absolutely. This includes, like on our grant programs for our rural communities, we've been able to spend twice as much money. Those are about $4.5 million this year. Before the federal dollars were coming in, those were in the $2 million range. Those destination development pieces that we classify as marketing pieces allow us to do that. Marketing also includes sponsorships of key things that allow us to help do that. But the majority of that money was in going from that 35 million to the 112 million.
All righty, thank you. And we appreciate the good job you folks do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next on the list is Representative Sparks. You're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner. I love your enthusiasm. I really do. It's great to get great news. But on the global footprint, going back what Parkson was bringing up, the Dublin, Ireland flights, what would be which I think is brilliant because, 20% of Tennesseans have a Scotch-Irish ancestry, and a lot of folks would probably want to go. In fact, you got me so excited. I was telling the Boyd I'd like to visit Dublin. My mother was from Scotland. She was Scotch-Irish. And I love your name, Mahoney. And it's St. Patrick's Day, so it's very fitting. But what kind of ad would you do in Dublin? I was just curious. How would y'all market Tennessee in Dublin?
Yeah. Deborah, I'll let you hit the second part. What's great about Reykjavik and Dublin, though, is they are jumper markets too for us. So we will be talking to folks in London, Paris, Frankfurt, all of those, because these two airlines give you an economical way to get to Dublin and then quickly get to one of those others, saving tremendous money. So we do more than just in Dublin and in Reykjavik, because Reykjavik goes to 18 or 19 other immediate cities there in Europe. Deborah?
Deborah Smith, Assistant Commissioner Marketing. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir. The ads we would do in Dublin would basically be around the same pillars of assets that we talk about anywhere for Tennessee: outdoor, music, family, really giving them reason to visit. So it's building awareness. As Commissioner mentioned, Dublin is such a connector to all of Europe that it gives us one more opportunity to connect, or Iceland's a connector to Europe. Dublin's a strong market. Gives us one more way to connect all those people with reasons to visit Tennessee. So we would just extend our our same brand campaign and invitation to visit into those markets in our ads.
Real quick, a lot of folks don't know St. Patrick. There's an awesome story. It was captured by Irish pirates. Nobody really knows some of this. It's really pretty cool. But why this matters to me, my mother was named after St. Patrick, Patricia. And folks want to go learn more, just go to YouTube. There's a cool story about St. Patrick. Thank you.
All right, our final question for today. No pressure there, Leader Camper. You are recognized. It is 10:30. We have, the department was here, it's supposed to be here for 30 minutes, and they have endured a 45-minute presentation, so I'll let you be brief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate everything you're doing for our great state. I want to go back to the international conversation and my concerns around the impact the tariffs may have. I know that a lot of the international travel we get from Canada to Nashville. And so now you got this thing going on. Are you foreseeing any decline there, or are you working to mitigate what that might be to make sure that people are still coming? Because a lot of our revenues that you've been talking about has come from Canada.
We listed it as a good question. We listed it as a concern, and we've seen a few short-term pieces. Flair Airlines has canceled their summer season in Nashville. That's about 18,000 seats. Again, that's a sentiment. We see travelers quickly react to political news, and then we see that great marketing overcomes that traveler sentiment. And why you just plow into all those reasons. Do you really want to miss seeing the Smoky Mountains? Do you really want to miss getting to go to Graceland and seeing Elvis for the first time, all of that, or Dolly or others? So we know how important the dollars to spend to keep talking to folks through the noise. And right now it's loud for Canada, and we are seeing a lot of cancellations, but it's ones that we think we can overcome because Tennessee's got so many great assets, and Canada's our number one traveler market. The UK spends the most, but we are optimistic about how we can overcome those, especially if we keep budgets that are the right size, and we think we brought you the right size budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last question. Thank you for that. So within this budget increase you're asking, funding is in there to try to help mitigate. Do you have enough funding within the budget request that you've asked to help?
Well, we think good question. We think this budget is the first big step toward replacing. Again, our group was spending $56 million this year. This budget will take us to 48. There's some grant money that goes to the DMO community that's still got a little bit of life with it. But we thought this is the responsible budget. Let's get some recurring dollars. Let's have that 25 million. Bring that still less than 2% of what Avista is spending on the tax savings. Just on the state side, you put the state and local side that they are bringing in. That was our strategy. We think this is the right first step. And the governor, being a businessman, agreed with that process to keep driving revenue.
Thank you,
Yes.
Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Leader Camper. All right, members, I have no one else on the list. Commissioner, thank you and your team for being here. Thank you for your presentation and for answering the questions for today. Thank you very much. All right. Without objection, we are now back in session. Without objection, we're back in session. That does complete our calendar for today. So just a reminder, budget hearings will resume tomorrow, Tuesday, March 18th, 2025 at 3 p.m. here in House Hearing Room 1. Do we have any further business coming before the committee? Hearing none and seeing none, without objection, we stand adjourned.